clothes or other game day items will go to waste.
Thank you for through. Alex?
Thank you. One of the core tenets of my policy plan is campus beautification. I've been running on this for a while, but it definitely is something that is more bureaucracy focused because of just the manner of which it requires a lot of extensive approvals, permitting, and region approval if it goes over $50,000 in expenditures. What I've been working on in actually one of my courses as well, I've been speaking on this for a while through trees where I was I'm not really allowed to go anymore due to some time conflicts, but I've been advocating for a large-scale campus beautification project in collaboration with Trees, the LSA Sustainability Department, the University Grounds Crews, and the Student Sustainability Coalition, and numerous other student organizations, such as the American Conservation Coalition, which I am the president of. And I have extensive work with state legislators, and we're working on policies there. I'm advocating for renewable energy such as nuclear and geothermal, of course. We want to bring back these opportunities for our university and for investment. We need to organize volunteer events where students can plant native plants in neglected areas on campus, such as outside of Mason Hall, the Ingles Mall, and the walkways outside the Power Center. A lot of these places where the seasonal impact has been felt, and then we have been negligent in our capacity to actually, restore those areas. And we need to restore these underutilized green spaces while promoting environmental stewardship. And we need to be forward-facing and lead students so that we can save money, provide opportunities for us to expand organizations, and also to accrue support for these initiatives in the broader scale.
Thank you, Alex. Gabriel, would you like to chance to rebuttal? Okay, we will start then with Alex and the snacks option. Mental health resources on campus are often thin. How would you prioritize and expand access to mental health services for LSA students?
Yeah, it's really a shame that UHS only runs during the day. Everyone knows, at least anecdotally, that mental health crises overwhelmingly do not occur during the day. They occur at nighttime where people feel isolated, they're away from their services, they have to be alone with themselves, and nobody should have to feel that way. Nobody should have to feel alone. Nobody should have to feel like they are unsafe where they are in the circumstance or that anything like that. We need to coordinate with UHS to host events with simple things such as therapy dogs during exam weeks. We need to expand UHS and TAPS, which are now combined, the hours of which are very insufficient, and a lot of people don't know the support services that exist, which is why I applaud a lot of the resource guide. We need to get that out effectively and make sure that everyone has access to these things, because we need to create a targeted social media campaign to promote the health subcommittee as well. The student health resource guide raising awareness of these services, and we need to, above all else, increase our collaboration with campus health organizations, external organizations that we can have donate a lot of these services. They are all very eager to work with us. We just need to extend our hands so that we can work with them proficiently. We don't need to just go through the university, because the university, we cannot just wait for some of these things. Mental health is significantly important. It is an extreme impairment for so many students. It is something that we have to prioritize in many ways in order to make sure that people can go about their days, and nothing that people should be worried about should pertain to their mental health when it comes to academia. It's strenuous enough.
Yeah. Gabriel?
Yes, I touched on this earlier, but I'd like to expand a little bit more on it. The health committee is working on a non-binding ballot question to collect raw data on students' experiences with CAPS scheduling appointments. Some students at this university have approached me and they have expressed their dissatisfaction with CAPS. Their appointments have constantly been rescheduled or canceled altogether with no chance of rescheduling. And we want to push for reform within CAPS, but we can't do this without student input. So we can identify what is truly, what is truly wrong, what is the consensus across the student body. And that is why we are pushing that non-binding ballot question out. But on top of that, many students are maybe unaware that there are other avenues for health therapy. There is a program that the University of Michigan has partnered with, You Will, that uh, that is offers telehealth therapy for students, whether they are abroad or they're at home for the summer. This is something that all students can access for free. And through the avenue of the health resource guide, we would like to push more of these resources, such as You Will. And finally, we have study breaks that the Student Life Committee hosts every semester. And a lot of the roots of mental health um, can, can also mental health can also be rooted in high personal hygiene, and that is what we do at the study break. We uh, provide hygiene resources, and we're also writing fidgets for students this year. I think they're going to love that one. Um, and yeah, these are the resources that we provide through the Student Life Committee that we would also like to continue promoting under the next administration.
Thank you, Gabriel. Alex, would you like to follow? Yes. Mental health resources on campus are often stretched thin. How would you prioritize and expand access to mental health services for LSU?
I would like to reemphasize that, putting out these sorts of questions, valid questions all the time is very nice, but we're only able to do them once a semester. We're only, we're kind of limited in our capacity to do so, depending on the format of which we give it. And what I would say to that is we only get about 10 to 13% turnout in our elections. And when it comes to these ballot questions, which are all the way down the ballot, despite how competitive or uncompetitive our elections are, about 40% or more abstain among those 10 to 13%. So this is something that using our services, if we just conveyed it in the right way through things such as tabling, or if we just went to these student organizations, or just put it out in general in the mass emails that we have and more, we should be spamming the emails of things that matter, and these things do matter. We do not need to waste time with these surveys because we know that all of these policies require survey data, student support for some of these initiatives. That's something that can't wait.
Thank you, Alex. All right, last question before we move on with announcements. We'll start with Gabriel. How will you advance diversity and inclusion if elected, and what is one initiative that you will introduce to accomplish these goals?
Yes, thank you for the question. As a Palestinian and person of Palestinian and Pakistani heritage, I've encountered a great deal of discrimination on campus. Even within my own organizations and cultural organizations. And what we want to do at this university is, first off, again, push for university recognition of anti-genocide protests and other overseas conflicts, and completely, ensure that this university is divesting from them, because and also cutting ties with ICE, because a lot of students at this university, especially pointing to international students. I have a lot of international friends, international students for friends on campus, and they have expressed that they feel unsafe voicing their opinions. It's, again, under the current administration, and they feel like their voices can't be heard because if they attend these protests, then their careers and their university careers will be at stake. And under this next administration, if Izzy and I are elected, we would like to provide a safe avenue for all these students to voice their opinions. And we would also like to allocate more funds and exposure to the Diversity Affairs Committee to establish permanent DI programs like the and creating a scholarship fund that will allow all students, regardless of their background, regardless of their identities, they feel included on campus, they feel wanted, and they feel like their voices can be heard without their free speech being violated.
Thank you, Gabriel. Alex?
I would say that diversity of opinion, diversity of voice, free speech is a fundamental core tenet of this university. It's supposed to be, and of this country. It's supposed to be. That is something that we are not just supposed to be strict advocates for specific policies or initiatives. We are supposed to be the voice of students. People are elected for whatever platform they go to, some people, but despite the fact that we don't represent too much of an electorate, we represent all students in the broad sense. And what I think I really support when it comes to the current administration that we have with Martino is that increasing those methods of dialogue while simultaneously engaging in advocacy behind closed doors to the people that are key shareholders and actually matter with these decisions. They are not mutually exclusive objectives. This is something where on this campus we have seen an exhaustive amount of activism in a good way and for worse because of the way that people become almost exhausted or they become they don't feel as engaged in some of this activism because of the fact that nobody knows where to direct their voice in a way that will matter. So people cease to talk because of the fact that they don't think that their voice matters anymore. And that's why we have to use our resources and we have to be advocates. We can't shout out people who disagree with us. We cannot be violent. We cannot be rude or disrespectful. But we can have realistic dialogue with the administration. Talk to them about human rights abuses. Talk to them about global and current events, and ask them to fulfill their duties, which is to protect students to the largest extent, to the greatest extent of the law.
Thank you, Alex. Gabriel, would you like to rebuttal? Okay.
All right, we're gonna open the floor up to audience questions. We have one from Jackson.
Thank you. For both candidates, what is your working relationship with other members of government and how this affects your ability to enact or like legislative priorities or other priorities?
Alex, you can start.
I'm saying I have a good relationship with the vast majority of people. I try to be very respectful. That's the only way that it can be. You have to be genuine with people. That's how not only that you be elected, but that you maintain relationships with every one of you. I respect a lot of you, despite the fact that we disagree on some things, whether significant or trivial. And at the end of the day, I hope that we all understand that we can be respectful of one another. And that's why this year felt so different for me. That I said that this was really the first year that I felt at least somewhat well done in this government, where we were able to enact positive legislation, cut down on some of the regulations that were harming students using the resources that we have, make sure that we fund ourselves and structure ourselves more efficiently, save each other some time because we all are students at the end of the day. And regardless of whether or not people agree with me on certain things, whether it pertains to student government or elsewhere, that should not be something that matters to my position. I am meant to be a nonpartisan person that will advocate for what is right, strictly when it comes to the rights of students and what it pertains to this university.
All right, Gabriel.
Yeah, can you repeat the question for me? Yeah, so how is your working relationship with members of the government and how will this how does this affect your ability to enact your priorities? Yeah, I would like to think, well, hopefully, unless people speak behind my back, that I have a very good relationship with everyone in this government, especially you, Alex. Alex, is a very fun person to talk to, and I like to say, we keep things in the room at the SG meetings, despite our differences on how to run a government or how or on our opinions on legislation. We keep things in the room, and at the end of the day, we all prioritize a collaborative environment where all of our voices feel like they matter, and none of us are ashamed to have the opinions that we do about whatever topic it is.
Thank you, Gabriel. Any other audience questions?
Am I allowed to ask one?
We go to the response.
Okay, fair enough.
We have 24 more minutes, so we would definitely appreciate at least one or two questions from the audience. Can be to one or both candidates. I'm gonna go to Andrea.
Lsa Jr. Voter, voter. So my question is, can both of you identify an admirable trait that your opponent has? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I already touched on this, but Alex is a super personal guy. Oh man, like I've talked to him a lot outside of the office, and he's just a very enjoyable person to talk to. You have a great sense of humor, and if this was it podcast ever does happen with Nick, I would. Oh my god, it's gonna be such a fun time because yeah, you're an easy person to talk to, and yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping that wasn't the hardest question that you got today, but I appreciate your sense of humor. You do work very hard in what you do. I really appreciate that. All the resource guys that I remember. JJ Nisker and a lot of the other people with Pilar and many of the other people that have been working on that for a while, trying to find a conclusive way towards that. It's something that we often agree, something that we need to get out to people. And we probably maybe we disagree with these, I wish we want to do that or something like that. But I would say at the end of the day, I really respect you as a person, and I would say that I respect the vast majority, if not everyone, in our student government currently, regardless of whether or not we agree on specific.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go on Marcus.
Nonpartisanship in regional student government hospitality. Could you describe how you plan to serve in a nonpartisan way? And do you feel the only affiliations that voters should know about any partisanship?
Alex, you start.
I think that if anyone's ever read the Daily in the past 2 or 3 years, they would know that I hold positions in Parks and Manor. I don't think that precludes me from any holdings that I have when it comes to the university. I'm the president of the College Republicans. I don't think that's a scary word. It shouldn't be for anyone, and specifically to me, I try to be an advocate for things like free speech, things that people can understand are things that are supposed to be bipartisan and nonpartisan as well as protecting the rights of people who, not just who deserves it, who we think are justly, due respect, but everyone should be respected. And I think that is why, a lot of, I wouldn't be where I am today if not for the fact that a lot of people can agree that I have set aside most of the vast majority of my federal government policy positions when it comes to student government. And I've spoken to the council and a few other people on this. I said, if anyone can think of an initiative or policy or any moment where I acted unduly in my office as a representative of student government due to my status as a Republican, call me out. Everyone is welcome to do so. It's not something that I don't think it's relevant because of the fact that I have acted differently when it comes to university policy than maybe I would on a federal scale. That's not pertinent. And also, I've advocated for a lot of things that a lot of people would not expect out of me. So if you want to talk to me about anything on a political or anything basis, just either look me up or ask me about the positions I hold because I'm very frank with everyone else. I try to be very transparent. And that's what the presidency deserves.
Thank you, Alex. It's real. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can confidently say that I don't have any formal ties to any partisan organization at this university. And I, again, like to try to keep this as much out of my decision-making student government as much as possible. Because at the end of the day, as Alex said, we are serving an entire population of students who, some may share the same beliefs that I do, or some might be have completely different beliefs, and the entire purpose of SG is to again serve everybody as a whole, and also within the government internally, make sure that we are respecting each other's beliefs and keeping things inside of the general meetings, inside the meetings, and outside of meetings. That can be a completely different issue. But it would be very counterproductive to, bring in partisanship into the government and also not allow it under bylaws. So I stay as far away from that as possible.
Thank you, Gabriel.
We'll go with that.
Thank you. It's good to have some of that free speech you guys have been talking about. It feels good. I have a little bit of a history lesson about previous presidencies of LSASG, followed by a question. So I'll keep it as short as I can. So basically, people think a lot of the problems in LSASG started during the shut it down era, and I feel like if you go farther into history, a lot of that proves to be inaccurate. So, for example, in the Wajahat Irfan administration, they also passed 10%, I believe it was exponentially 10 times less bills than the previous. You also had a different vote of no confidence back in 2020, which was Selena Bazzi and Josiah Walker, another one passed. And I wanted to ask you guys, between failed administrations and then obviously like administrations like this one, which are getting a lot more done by comparison, what do you think the key difference is between those failed administrations and a successful one?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I think the key difference in between a successful administration and those that you mentioned is it. I think it's a lot of um, pointing fingers at each other, pointing fingers at the administration, and as the both of us touched on a lot, is approaching conversations from a collaborative lens instead of an accusatory accusatory lens. Because if you're going up to someone, if you're going up to an administration who has a tremendous amount of power compared to us at LSA student government, you can't just say, yeah, you're doing this wrong, fix it. You have to come up with, you have to be reasonable, you have to be cooperative, you have to be able to compromise. And I think that was what a lot of previous administrations fell short on, was the lack of compromising and being more hard-headed when it comes to policies, especially surrounding the current political climate.
Thank you, Gabriel. Alex?
I would say what differentiates the successful student governments and the unsuccessful student governments is the campaigns of which they are elected by. You have to look into how they're elected. Are you elected by a partisan coalition? Are you elected by some hot button issue that you're just capitalizing off of, which a lot of people have done before? And are you actually receiving sufficient amounts of votes from like a real telltale sign that people have voting confidence in you, where the turnout for elections has never gone over about 25%, and that was just a one-off for the most part. It's usually about 10-15%. That is something that indicates something is wrong. That means that people do not have proper messaging. Our campaign periods are much too short. Most people complain that the campaign periods are either too short or the candidates aren't making a good faith effort to do so. And the reason why is because every time the administrations are always prompted to do reform on that, our elections team, on our outreach methods, and our leadership, they're inhibited by people who are rank and file. They are people who got in on very few votes, and sometimes people who didn't campaign much, and people who don't want to campaign much, because it is an exhaustive process. I understand, but it's something that if you want to be a student advocate, you have to be okay with the fact that if other people are going to put forth an effort, you have to give them the opportunity to beat you. You have to be receptive to that. You have to understand that if you're running a campaign, that you have to put everything out in the open, leave no questions unanswered, and you have to have the voters decide. And we can't force people to vote. The abstention rate is much too high. Doesn't work. So we have to make people care by actually doing things that people care about.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you both for your answers. I don't think either of those are mutually exclusive, and I'm happy that you guys gave them.
I have a question. I'll keep this extremely unbiased since I'm within the council. Here's my question. Both of you guys in your pretty long careers in SU, both of you guys have been in SU for at least a year, have seen bills that you supported, resolutions, policy priorities, etc., fail and succeed. How in your time as president will you, one, ensure that your legislative priorities and other priorities are passed and approved by the assembly? Two, how will you know when to compromise when people face some opposition to your bill or initiative? And three, when will you decide to back off? How much opposition can there be before you will back off and take a new direction instead of proposing the original policy?
Alex, it's some first.
And I would say that one of the distinct honors of the presidency is the fact that you have the opportunity to play, especially how I'm trying to be with my campaign presidency, is that I want to be transparent about the initiatives I want to prioritize. When I want to bring back ACT, I want to not cut funding from a lot of these committees, but I want to make sure that we itemize the expenditures and make sure they're properly used. I want us to be focused on the right things that is outward facing through the university to the greatest extent of which we can. And that is why when I have the honor of appointing the people who are in charge of a lot of these committees, who get voting rights, who have the capacity, regardless of that, they're going to be overwhelmingly on those initiatives. I want them to be focused on some of those initiatives, but if they push back on it, I'm completely receptive to it. If they have a better path forward with that, achieving those same outcomes without laying out a bunch of red tape and bureaucratic elements to it that are undoable, that is something I'm completely okay with. If there are things that people know have greater expertise on subject than me, I am okay with that. I don't want to be stubborn. I want people to call me out if I am, and I'm a bit hard-headed sometimes, but I do it because I care, not because I'm just trying to pass a million bills or anything like that. The only reason why most of the things I wrote haven't been passed just in one or two bills is because Jimmy stopped me as the counselor. So I didn't want it to be a numerical thing, but I wanted it to be something that we wouldn't have to be quarreling over internal discussions of bylaws or anything about enforcement, and just get down and do things to actually just devote all of our time into talking about what we are actually doing to help people. Our meeting should be very swift unless there are hours and hours of reports in which people are talking about all the amazing breakthroughs they've had with the University Administrator.
Sorry. Jabril, your turn.
Yes, thank you for the question, Jimmy. I made a point about this earlier, but I think compromising is a huge, skill to have, especially as president, because inevitably things aren't going to quite go your way, and you need to be able to, negotiate and ensure that both parties, if you were having an argument over, legislation or whatever it is, that both parties can come to an agreement on something, and things at SG, things won't get put to a halt, because I think efficiency is very important. And that's why I also want to stress, well, I should add too that I ran into this issue when I wrote legislation this semester regarding the health resource guide, and establishing guidelines for how the health resource guide must be maintained. And we talked about, I think it got voted down initially because it was, too short of a time frame by one of the members in our government, and I expressed that, I disagreed with the reasoning for voting it down right then and there, but we, at the end of the day, the legislation eventually got passed. Unfortunately, I was not there to see the birth of my child, but I think it is important to know how to compromise and know when to take no for an answer. And I'd also like to stress student input is a huge thing in legislation. I think if more students express their desire for certain legislation to be passed, then I think it is important that their input is recognized in the writing of legislation, and I think through that, we can, as a student government, come to better agreements on uh, what is passed and
Thank
what is
you for y'all.
Congrats on your child.
Next, we are going to move into your guys' closing statements. So Alex, you will close first, you'll have 2 minutes, and then Gabriel, you will finish the debate for us. Go ahead, Alex.
In the student government, as a freshman, I wasn't very welcome. I didn't feel welcome. And it was expressly told to me by some of the leadership on the executive board at the time. And that persisted for the year that followed, as well as the year that followed that. And one of my initiatives has always been in the way that I compose myself in student government, despite, when some people may think of me going in, that I want to be respectful to people. I want people to treat me that way. I want people to be respectful to others. I want people to be respectful to me. And I want to deserve it. I want to be proud of that. So what I say is that I hope to be a beacon of that change and that promise, that we are not going to keep the status quo of the way that we have like this rank and file system of people who, sometimes traditionally we've had a lot of half-hearted people, at least when it came to some of the other commitments that people have. And that, sometimes it's reasonable and sometimes we need to say, like, we need new leadership. And that's why I believe we need new leadership. So to those who have been vilified and victimized, disparaged, and put down for their values and their views, whether it's internal or external, to those who have been wrongfully betrayed by those who have long claims to stand with them and help, I will be your voice. I will work for you. I will speak to you. I will be transparent, and I will be your retribution. I will no further vindication against those who devoted much of their time to see to it that I fail. I really hope that I can work with you all in the new administration, because no longer should any student or student government representative be treated in the way that I have or many others that I've worked with in the past.
Gabriel, your
Again, my name is Jabril, and I believe that actions speak louder than words when it comes to approaching running student government. And through what Izzy and I setting up to do if you are elected as president and vice president, is continue to stress collaborations with students, the administration, and collaboration within the government, and instead of just making empty promises. And I can assure you that anything that, again, that we have set out to do, we will do whatever it takes to make happen, whether it's with the housing resource guide, for collaborating with the trees committee and sustainability organizations to launch the geothermal complex that again is currently being worked on. But I think collaborative environments they lead to a more efficient and effective government. And again, if Izzy and I were to be elected, we would ensure that all student voices inside and outside the government will be heard. And that is all I have to say. Thank you. Again, my name is Gabriel, and I'll be drawn.
Yeah. One last applause for everyone who participated in the debate today. Thank you, guys.
and thank you. Thank you guys for coming. And the candidates, I'm sure, will be sticking around a little bit if you want to ask them individual questions as well. And then candidates can take a question.
Should we get a
Yes, I think you guys were gonna push. Like a shaking hands for the. Oh, yeah.
What iPhone do you have?
15.
I have 17 Pro. It's a new one. I'll take it. Okay.